You want your ear, brother?
Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So inshallah ta'ala tonight we will continue our commentary on the book Muslim Morals and Manners, and the subsection of the book which deals with guidelines or provides guidelines for interpersonal relations and informs us how we're supposed to interact with others, the rights that people are due, whether they be individuals or groups, and how we're supposed to fulfill those rights. And as we mentioned previously, in this section, they mentioned the rights of others, or they mentioned the groups and individuals with whom we have to interact and their rights. They mentioned them in descending order. So they begin first and foremost with the right of parents, or the rights of parents, and then our close relatives, and then the rights between husbands and wives, and then last week we talked about neighbors, and now we come to the final segment of this section, and that is entitled Honoring Fellow Muslims in General and Their Rights. Honoring fellow Muslims in general and their rights. And the compilers, they introduced the topic by saying there are certain rights that Muslims have over each other. Some of them are stressed more than others. The Prophet ﷺ informed us that faith is not complete until a person fulfills the rights of others. He loves for his brother what he loves for himself, and dislikes for him what he dislikes for himself. He also told us that the believers are like one body or one structure. So this introduction, this short paragraph introduction, it establishes for us certain fundamental principles, and it lays the foundation upon which Islamic brotherhood and sisterhood are based. So this is really important. So I'm going to mention some points before we actually get into specifics. I just want to bring out some points just from this little paragraph introduction. So the first point is that a Muslim, simply by virtue of being Muslim, has rights given to him or her by Allah Himself over his or her fellow Muslims, which they are expected and in some cases required to fulfill. So just by virtue of being a Muslim, a person automatically has rights over you. You need to understand that this person has rights just because they're Muslim, and I, because I'm a Muslim, owe them certain rights. And this is supported by the hadith collected by Bukhari, collected by Muslim, on the authority of Abu Hurairah, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, حق المسلم المسلم ست إذا لقيته فسلم عليه وإذا دعاك فأجب وإذا استنصحك فانصحه وإذا عطس فحمد الله فعد فشمته وإذا مرض فعد وإذا مات فاتبعه. So he said in this hadith, he said, the rights which one Muslim owes to another are 6 rights. If you meet him, greet him with the greeting of al-Islam. Assalamu alaikum. If he invites you, accept his invitation. If he seeks your advice, advise him sincerely. If he sneezes and upon doing so praises Allah, then make the appropriate dua for him, meaning say, Yarhamukallah. If he becomes ill, visit him. And if he dies, attend his funeral. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned 6 rights. It should be noted, though, that these are not the only rights that Muslims have over each other. Rather, these are what? The most basic and fundamental rights. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned them. But Muslims do have other rights over each other. We need to pay attention to this, because some people would think, oh, okay, the rights I owe to another Muslim are limited to these 6 rights. After that, I don't owe them anything. La. There are other rights mentioned by Islam. So, for example, a Muslim has the right, or the right to the benefit of the doubt. They have the right not to be spied upon. So, for example, people have a tendency to concern themselves with what? With the comings and goings, with the purchases, and with the belongings of other people. Islam says what? We don't spy on people. Where did they go? What did they do? What did they buy? Where did they get the money that they bought it with? You follow me? We don't do that in Islam. We don't what? Spy. And they have the right not to be spoken about in their absence in a manner that they would find offensive. And the proof of this statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا. It says, "O you who believe, avoid a great deal of suspicion. Verily, some suspicion is sin. And do not spy upon one another, and do not backbite one another." So these are other rights which are mentioned in the Quran. So we should never think that the rights are what? Limited to what? Those 6 rights. Then the compilers, they said, but some rights are what? They're emphasized and stressed more than others. And we see this in the hadith. The Prophet said 6 rights to what? To underscore, to highlight, to emphasize these rights, and not to indicate that they're the only rights, because He knows full well there are other rights. The next thing that I want to mention is that the completeness of one's faith is predicated upon fulfilling the rights of others. And we've spoken about this many times, and I want to mention it again. That basically, you don't really believe until you learn how to treat other people the way you would want to be treated. You have to learn how to put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, if they did this to me, would I be okay with it? And if that's a no, then you shouldn't what? Then you shouldn't do it. And if you don't do that, if you don't behave like that, in the sense that I want to be treated a certain way, but I feel fine treating other people in a way which is what? Different from that, then your faith is what? Is deficient. Your faith is lacking. And this is supported by the hadith of Anas, collected by Bukhari and Muslim, which the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. He said, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And he said in the other hadith, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr, collected by Muslim, he said, فَمَنْ يُحِبُّ أَنْ يُزَحْزَحْ عَنِ النَّارِ وَيُدْخَلْ الْجَنَّةِ فَلْيُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَلْيَأْتِ إِلَى النَّاسِ مَا يُحِبُّ أَنْ يُؤْتَى إِلَيْهِ. He said, he who loves to avoid the hellfire and be admitted to paradise, then let him believe in Allah and the last day, and give people the treatment he himself would like to receive. So this is critical, ya ikhwani, for us to understand that we don't truly believe, we can't call ourselves believers if we treat people one way while we expect to be treated a different way. When you treat people the way we want to be treated. But last but not least, the Muslims are expected to view themselves and their fellow Muslims as forming a single community. The community of the believers in Allah, His Messenger and His religion. And they're supposed to mutually support each other like the bricks of a structure. That when you put all those bricks together with mortar, they do what? They make each other solid. They make each other one solid building. That's how the believers are supposed to picture themselves. And so if they're going to do that, they have to strive at the same time to avoid fissures, cracks, and divisiveness that will do what? Weaken the structure and make it fall apart or come crashing down. Things that will do what? Will undermine their unity. They have to avoid that. And they have to do everything they can that will do what? Foster and strengthen what? The ties that bind them. And the proof for this is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. He says, hold fast altogether to the rope of Allah, to the rope which Allah stretches out for you. And be not divided amongst yourselves. And remember the favor of Allah upon you, when you were bitter enemies, and He brought your hearts together, and you became, by His decree, by His grace, brethren in Islamic faith. So these are some of the principles that we need to bear in mind as we study this topic. And I'm just going to go over them really quickly. That basically a Muslim, just because they're Muslim, they have rights over you. And these rights are not predicated on them being what? The best Muslim. Or them being the Muslim who shares your race or your ethnicity. But just by virtue of being Muslim, they have what? These rights. The next thing, some of these rights are more stressed and emphasized in Islam than others, like the 6 rights the Prophet mentioned in the Hadith. The next one, your faith is not complete if you're comfortable treating someone one way while you expect to be treated another. And finally, a Muslim or Muslims are supposed to view themselves as what? Like the bricks of a building. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And so they mutually support each other. They have to be there for each other. And they try to avoid doing things which will undermine their unity, which will cause what? Division. Which will cause a lack of harmony and accord. They're supposed to avoid that. And it's kind of like what we talked about previously. We talked about husbands and wives, that we have this objective-based approach to our relationship. That the relationship is supposed to achieve something, so we do everything that what? That will achieve that, or help us to achieve that, foster that, and we avoid everything which will undermine it. It's the same thing when you're dealing with a Muslim. So you don't have to have an ayah or a hadith all the time to say, hey, should I do this or not? You just think, okay, is this going to foster unity or going to cause what? Division. And if it's going to cause division, then you know that you're not supposed to do it. And if it's going to cause unity, then you know that you're supposed to do it. With that said, after the compilers, they establish these principles and they lay this foundation. They proceed to start detailing now. They're going to give us details. They want to give us the guidelines for interpersonal relations with other Muslims. How do you deal with other Muslims? How do you interact with them? And they use that hadith that we mentioned earlier, the hadith of Haqq al-Muslim, al-Muslim sit, that the Muslim has 6 rights over his fellow Muslim. They use it as the guide for this discussion. And so we'll do the same thing. We'll use these rights, and at the end, we'll mention some additional rights that are not mentioned in the hadith. So first of all, greeting. The Prophet started off by saying, إِذَا لَقِيتُهُ فَسَلِّمْ عَلَيْهِ. If you meet him, then greet him. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right. So there's some points related to the concept of greeting. First of all, why do we greet? What's the wisdom behind greeting? What do we hope to obtain? What's our objective behind greeting? And greeting with this greeting that the Prophet told us, the greeting of as-salam, the greeting of Islam. طيب. Huh? To be known. طيب. That doesn't
recognize someone.
Okay, so one, it does distinguish us from what? From other faith groups, the way they greet each other. Good morning, good evening. What's up? No, we say what? Assalamu alaikum. So yeah, it does distinguish us. There's no question about that. What else?
You recognizing someone.
Hey, you're acknowledging them being Muslim, giving them a special status. Okay, all right. Okay, and
you conveying a message.
Huh?
You start conversation like that.
Hey.
By saying Assalamu alaikum.
Mumtaz.
Take you to a different.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
But you're conveying a message of peace instead of just hello.
Hey.
Or whatever. I mean, it may get lost in because you say it all the time, Assalamu alaikum. But
hey.
if you actually think of the meaning, saying peace to the person, like you're starting off on a good note
Ahsan.
in your meeting.
And all these things that you're saying are right. Everything you said is right. And let me just add one thing the Prophet said in addition to what you said. He said, لا تدخلون الجنة حتى تؤمنوا. He told his companions, he said, you people, you're not going to enter paradise until you believe. ولا تؤمنوا حتى تحابوا. You're not going to believe, you're not going to truly believe until you love each other. ألا أدلكم على شيء إذا فعلتموه تحاببتم. He said, shall I not tell you something that if you do it, you'll love each other? And they were like, certainly, O Messenger of Allah. Yeah, we want to know. So he said, أفشوا السلام بينكم. He said, do what? Spread the salam amongst yourselves. So one of the key reasons why we give this salam is because it does what? It fosters the feeling of what? Brotherhood, affinity, love, fellowship in the person that you give it to. That's one of the main purposes. And that's why the Muslim should never do what? Replace this greeting with another greeting. Right? And people do that. So for example, we interact with some Muslims and they, instead of Assalamu alaikum, they say what? Marhaba. Ahla wa sahla. Right? They have these other greetings. Right? Sabah al-Khair, Sabah al-Nur, Masa al-Khair, Masa al-Nur. They have these other greetings they give instead of giving As-Salam. And those greetings can't achieve what As-Salam will achieve. So we have to be very careful of what? Replacing these greetings with another greeting. طيب. Another point about greetings is what is the ruling of initiating the greeting. So for example, I see a Muslim. Do I have to greet him? Or am I given the option to greet him? If he greets me, do I have to respond, etc.? An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that initiating the greeting is only recommended, but it's highly recommended. Why? Because of what we just mentioned. Because of what you achieve. But responding to it is wajib. It's mandatory. Meaning, if a Muslim says to me, Assalamu alaikum, I can't do that. Right? Or I can't say marhaba. I have to respond to his greeting with what? With wa alaikum assalam. At least what? A greeting which is equal to it. Okay? So I have to respond. That response is mandatory. What is the meaning of as-salam? What does it mean? We say it all the time, but do we know what it means?
Peace be upon you.
Okay, peace be upon you. That's how we translate it. But what is the actual meaning of what? As-salam, this peace. The scholars of Islam, they said it's either one of two meanings. They said one of them is as-salam ismun min asma Allah. They say as-salam is a name from the names of Allah. So as if the person said as-salam, meaning Allah, alaykum, upon you. Which would mean what? May you be under his what? His protection. May you be under his protection and care. Like a person says, Allah ma'ak. May Allah be with you. Okay, so it's similar. If you said Assalamu alayk and you meant the name of Allah, it would mean what? May you be under what? His ri'ayah, his protection and care. So that's one meaning of what? As-salam. Another meaning of as-salam is as-salama, which is what? Well-being, safety, being out of harm's way. So it's actually as if you're praying to the person, you're praying for the person saying, may you always be in a state of safety and security. Okay? So in this way, when a Muslim greets another Muslim, you're actually doing what? You're making dua for that person, praying for their safety, their security, and being free from harm. Now I want you to think about this. Isn't it a huge contradiction? If you greet a Muslim, and you say, Assalamu alaikum, and that's a prayer. I pray that you be in peace, that you be safe, that you be out of harm's way. And then you proceed to what? To curse them, to argue with them, to say or do something to them that what? That hurts them. Isn't that a huge contradiction? So it's almost like the salam sets the tone. as if you're saying, I'm praying that you'll be safe, and I'm not going to be a source of what? Of harm. So don't let your actions contradict your statement. That you need to be the furthest person away from harming another Muslim who you greeted with as-salam. Who you greeted with as-salam. But ثم بعد ذلك, there's another important point. That there are levels of as-salam. There's levels of what? Of greeting. So the greetings that we give, there are more than one way to what? Give as-salam. And those greetings are what? On different levels. They're not all the same. And we need to understand that. There's also unacceptable greetings. There's ways that we greet that are totally what? Unacceptable, and therefore we should avoid them. So for example, An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he basically ranked the greetings in ascending order, which means what? From the lowest to the highest level. Okay? So he said the lowest level of salam, the lowest level, is to say salamun alayk. Salamun alayk. Salamun bitanween. You know, you put the tanween and there's no alif lam. Salamun alayk. This is what? The lowest level. The minimum. Then better than that, salamun alaykum. Salamun alaykum. So instead of alayk, which is singular, you make it what? Plural. Alaykum. Then the next level is as-salamu alayk. As-salamu alayk. Wa alaykum as-salam. So it has alif lam, but it's singular. Okay? It has alif lam, but it's singular. طيب. The next level, number 4, somebody guess. Ahsan. MashaAllah. Stop cheating, Habib. Do that. You already knew the answer. Man, you can't do that. That's not right. طيب. So that's right. As-salamu alaykum. So we start salamun alayk. Salamun alaykum. As-salamu alayk. As-salamu alaykum. What do you think comes next? Wa rahmatullah. And then last but not least, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which is the highest level of what? Of as-salam. This is the highest level of as-salam. Mumtaz ya ikhwan. طيب, ثم بعد ذلك, there's also a type of salam which is what? Unacceptable. So when you initiate the salam, you can't initiate it in this way. If you do, it's wrong. And that was mentioned in the hadith collected by Abu Dawood on the authority of Abu Jurayyin al-Hujaymi. He said, أتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم فقلت عليك السلام يا رسول الله فقال صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم لا تقل عليك السلام فإن عليك السلام تحية الموتى تحية الموتى. He said, so he said, I came to the Prophet and I said, upon you be peace. So he what? He inverted it. You know, when we start, we say what? Assalamu alayk or alaykum. He said, no, what? Alayka as-salam ya Rasulullah or alaykum as-salam ya Rasulullah. So he what? Inverted it. So instead of saying peace be upon you, he said upon you be peace. And the Prophet said, don't say upon you be peace, because that's the greeting of what? Of the dead. So this is one way that we don't greet each other. The greeting of what? Of the dead. There's also a protocol. There's a protocol for greeting. And that was mentioned in the hadith of al-Bukhari Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah. And that hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, يسلم الراكب على الماشي والماشي على القائد والقليل على الكثير والصغير على الكبير. He said the rider should greet the one who is walking. Okay? So if one of us is driving his car and we pass by a Muslim in the parking lot, we want to give him a greeting, we don't sit there and wait like, okay, greet me, brother. No, we should what? Greet. The rider greets what? The one walking. So we're walking to the masjid, somebody's sitting outside. Who should greet who? The walker should greet the one seated. if a small group of people, 3, 4, 5, pass by a large group of people, got a bunch of people sitting in the pavilion, that small group should greet what? The larger group. And if you have an elderly gentleman and a young man, the young man should do what? Should greet his elder. Okay, not the other way around. طيب, any questions about that, Ikhwan? That's what we wanted to mention about greetings. So
there's a greeting that sometimes you hear from the Indo-Pakistani community.
Walaikum salam.
There's a community. Parting greeting where they say Kudu Hafiz.
Shoo?
You haven't heard?
What is it? Say it again.
Kudu Hafiz.
What is it? Allah Hafiz.
Allah. They say
Allah yahfadak or something like that.
But they say Kudu Hafiz.
Be in God's security.
Really?
Allah Hafiz.
Acha.
عجيب. But أقول, as I said, when we part with the salah. We part with the salah, as the hadith it says, that don't think that the parting greeting is any less than the greeting that when you initially met. He said in the hadith sallallahu. So we part with the salah, and they definitely shouldn't. I don't care what the greeting is, how good its meaning is. A person shouldn't replace salam with another greeting. Yeah.
So, for example, I've in my encounters with someone, from that persuasion, they would say it, and I would say Assalamu alaikum. I would end with that.
Jimmy?
And sometimes they don't respond.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't respond to the salam?
Because the Kudu Hafiz it seems like it's embedded in their culture,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, that's unfortunate how that has
You
happened.
say Hafiz good.
Allah understand. So yeah, I mean, we should never replace. You have to think that if there was a better greeting,
I have a question.
whether it's a greeting that you make when you meet or a greeting that you make when you part, there was a better greeting, Allah would have. And this is the greeting of the prophets from Adam, okay, to the end of time. It's going to be the greeting to the point that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created Adam, He created him fi ahsani surah. He created him what? In the most excellent shape and fashion. And he was 60 cubits tall. 60 cubits tall. Can you imagine that? Okay? And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed into him or breathed into him from the spirit that He created to occupy his body, He told him, go and give salams, go and greet that group of malaika and listen to what they respond to you. That's going to be your greeting and the greeting of what? All of your descendants. So from this time, that was the greeting. So if there were a better greeting, Allah would have given it to us. So we shouldn't create a greeting from our own invention that we think is good. And of course, Allah fi awnik, Allah yahfadak, Allah yukrimak. All these things are good things. But they're not better than what? The greeting that came from Allah that He taught to what? To Adam and told him it was going to be the greeting for all of his descendants. So if they say that and then they say Assalamu alaikum, that's fine. But they shouldn't replace Assalamu alaikum with that greeting. You had something?
Yeah, so is giving this salam an actual act of ibadah?
Yeah.
So,
and how do we know it's act of ibadah? Anything, ikhwan, that we hope to receive a reward for it is automatically an act of what? Ibadah. Anything that pleases Allah is automatically an act of what? Of ibadah. So yeah, it's
so,
an act of ibadah.
So, not if you replace something, but if you give the salam, but add something, say, on the end.
Mm-hmm, like
so
what?
Is this considered bid'ah now?
What are you adding, and what? It depends on what the intention is. So what are they adding? Give me an example.
Like, one brother used to give the salam like, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa jannatul firdaus.
Yeah, that's a bid'ah.
Yeah.
That's a bid'ah. Yeah, that's a bid'ah.
Yeah, wa maghfirah to a jannatul firdaus.
Yeah, that's a bid'ah. For sure.
Let me ask, what about the ma'as-salama?
Ma'as-salama?
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Ma'as-salama is it's like ila liqa. It just basically means with peace, with security.
Same thing like good Hafiz, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a part. It's something that people adopted as a parting greeting.
But it's been-
Ma'as-salama, ma'as-salama. People do that all the time, but again, it doesn't replace assalamu alaikum. No, it doesn't.
You said it's bid'ah, right?
Huh? No, ma'as-salama is not a bid'ah because they don't intend to worship Allah with that. It's become like good morning, good evening for us. That's how it's become. So, but the sad thing, like I said, is that Muslims allow these types of greetings to replace the salam to the point that I worked for a couple of years with Muslims from different parts of the Muslim world, and they never said salam. Everything was marhaba, hey marhaba, sabah al-khayr, subhan nur, everything. I mean, never, man.
Plus, when he says Salaam Alaikum, they get the reward.
Yeah, exactly. But we lose that concept. So, to the point that if you said a salam, you know, I would say, for example, I would see one of them, I'd say, Assalamu alaikum, marhaba. You know what I mean? They just, it was like just not a part of their vocabulary. Just wasn't their thing. And they felt like, oh, this is some religious extremist, you know, talking about Assalamu alaikum. What's wrong with him? Marhaba, shit. Like, that's like, man. Huh?
I have a question.
تفضلي.
What about giving salam to non-Muslims?
Okay, طيب. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Ibn Umar, he said, لا تبدو اليهود والنصارى بالسلام. He said, don't initiate the greeting of a salam with non-Muslims. So, it's not permissible for a Muslim to what? To initiate. They can't initiate the salam. If they saw a non-Muslim, they couldn't say, Assalamu alaikum. Okay? They couldn't say that. We also have the ayah in the Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا حُيِّيتُم بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحَيُّوا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا أَوْ رُدُّوهَا. He says, if you're greeted, O Muslims, if you're greeted with a greeting, then respond with a similar greeting. One equal to it. Or one better than it. Okay? I'm sorry, he says, respond with a better greeting, or at the very least, one which is what? Equivalent. So now if you put the ayah and the hadith together, then you'd say that the rule is this. Muslims don't initiate the salam with non-Muslims. But if a non-Muslim greeted you with a salam, you could respond with what? With what? Wa alaikum. You could even respond with what? Wa alaikum salam. You could even respond like that. So a person says, okay, well, how can we, okay, what do we do about the hadith where the Prophet said, when the Jews come to you, or Muslims, when the Jews come to you, they have a tendency to say, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. And they say it quickly. So when they say it quickly, it almost sounds like they're saying assalam, but they're really saying what? Assam. They're saying what? Death and poison be upon you. So the Prophet said, when they greet you, okay, then say, wa alaikum. The scholars of Islam, they said, this is something specific to a specific group of people who used to greet the Muslims in a certain way. So, because of their knowledge of how they had a tendency to greet the Muslims, that was a particular rule for them. But other people, the Prophet didn't tell them that. So, for example, a Christian were to come and say Assalam, they would what? Respond. And the dalil for that is the ayah. So, if a Christian were to come and you heard him clearly say Assalam with lam, Assalamu alaikum, you could respond by saying Wa alaikum assalam, because of the ayah. So, that's the rule for salam with non-Muslims. We don't initiate. And if we don't hear what they say, or we have a doubt about what they said, we suffice ourselves with what? Wa alaikum. But if we clearly hear lam, as-salam, then we can respond in kind. Wa alaikum as-salam.
But is there any problem if when I go to my job in the morning and say, hey, good morning guys, how's your day?
Wallahi, to be a Sheikh, I think when the Prophet said, لا تبدو اليهود والنصارى بالسلام, he meant at-tahiyyah, tahiyyat as-salam, not just general greetings. So yeah, if I went to the job and I said, good morning, marhaba, okay, sabah al-khayr, there's no harm in that. There's no harm. And I'm not violating the injunction from the Prophet in which he said, don't initiate the Jews and Christians with as-salam. I won't give them a salam, but I can give them what? A good morning or whatever. Yeah. But, tfadal.
So when you come in, Juma's taking place
Hey.
in both instances. Even when the khatib is up there giving up the kubbat hajj, or when you come in, the little of the evidence, when you come in the masjid, Assalamu alaikum. What are you taking from that?
Wallahi, I'm not sure if the companions would enter the mosque and the Prophet was given the khutbah and give a salam once the khutbah was started. And I think that the likelihood that they didn't is stronger than they did, because the general rule is that you're not supposed to speak during the khutbah. You're not supposed to speak during the khutbah. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he was informed about people who spoke during the khutbah, he would tell them that they didn't have any Jumu'ah. He would tell them, you didn't have any, you didn't even pray with us, because they spoke during the khutbah. So you're not supposed to speak during the khutbah, and that should include what? Into the masjid and giving salam, because it does what? It distracts. And I think all of us been in that situation where somebody comes in, assalamu alaikum, it kind of distracts you. And we're supposed to be concentrating on the khatib. Now, the only exception to that would be if the khatib spoke to you. If the khatib spoke to you, then you're allowed to what? To respond. This is evidenced by the hadith where a man came into the masjid and there was room to pray. But he came in and immediately he sat down. He didn't pray rak'atain. He didn't pray the 2 units to greet the masjid. So the Prophet asked him, he said, did you pray rak'atain? And look at wallahi ikhwan, this Prophet is ajib. He is an amazing man. The Prophet saw him sit down. The Prophet saw him come. He watched him. He's up there on the minbar. He saw him come in and sit down. But what did the Prophet do? He asked him. He said, did you pray? Did you pray? And the wisdom behind that is that if the man confesses, okay, he's less likely to what? He's less likely to take offense and get on the defensive. If he says, no, I didn't pray, then the Prophet can do what? Advise him. But if the Prophet immediately says, did you pray? The man might get on the defensive. I did pray. What are you talking about? I prayed. So the Prophet asked him, did you pray? I'm sorry, if the Prophet had said you didn't pray, then he would have gotten defensive. But if the Prophet instead asked him, did you pray? And the man said, no, I didn't pray. So the Prophet said, pray. Just make it quick, but pray. So that would be the only exception. If the khatib talked to you, could speak. Suppose somebody does come in the masjid and they give us salam. And now we're obligated to what? To respond. How do we respond? You can respond by what? Yeah, by moving your lips. Okay? But you don't respond what? You don't oralize it. You don't vocalize it the way that person did.
So can we understand, I'm sorry ma'am, can we understand from this the permissibility of greeting a person in salah, but not the permissibility, okay, greeting when you enter and the khutbah is going on? This would be maybe the best understanding to understand about this case.
Hey, say it again, Sheikh.
As example, I'm making sunnah. For who's making sunnah?
Right.
I come in and I say, Assalamu alaikum.
Hey.
Like the Sahaba used to do to the
Prophet.
They would.
Hey.
And he would answer them by waving.
They would make that ishara. Hey.
But for Jum'ah, to be exception out of the general ruling, that no greeting with salam when you enter.
Yeah.
Because even Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar during the khutbah is not accepted.
Subhanallah. Yeah, I agree with that. Allah is khair. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
But most people that greet when they come for Salat al-Jum'ah that I've observed here is that they'll say it before the khutbah has started.
Yeah, that's fine.
And sometimes they'll say
before
it loud.
Jum'ah, anything can go, but
once the imam is up there, and then they're not greeting like, it'd be different too, yeah, Juan, if they greet like,
so you're saying,
I'm coming to a gathering of Muslims and I just feel compelled to say as-salam, but he says it in a low, like, no, almost invariably, assalamu alaikum. It's a distraction. It distracts the khatib. It distracts the people who listen to the khatib. And like I said, I don't think we have a precedent. I don't think we have a precedent from the Sahaba that they used to do that when the Prophet ﷺ was on the minbar. Allah knows best.
I have something.
طيب. All right. ثم بعد ذلك you had a question? تفضل شيء.
I heard some people say Allah yakhlik.
Same thing.
And what I learned about Arabic is that khali means leave. And I kind of don't get it.
Okay, that's good. Okay. All right. Khali, yeah, it can mean what? To leave something, like you're thinking, like you just leave it. But leaving can also mean to cause something to remain You follow me? To cause something to what? To remain, to stay. So if he said, Allah yukhalik, it's almost like he said, Allah yubqik. May Allah cause you to what? To stay here. Nothing will happen to you. You won't die. You follow what I'm saying?
Your life longer.
Exactly, make your life longer. You follow me? You see what they mean? So leave you in this dunya like that for a long time. Do you get it now? Does it make sense? So that's what they mean when they say that. When they say Allah yukhalik, Allah yubqik. Let him, keep you around because we can't live without you. You follow? All right. Tayyib. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a question. We'll finish up here. So with the 6 rights that were mentioned, I have an understanding that basically like something like this, that these are rights that like basically every Muslim owes me that right. Like for example, if I'm sick or if I sneeze or anything like that, but even though each person owes me that right, as long as something happens, like I'm sick, as long as one person does it, they relieve the rest of the believers.
Some of them.
So which ones are which?
And that's good too. But I'm glad you mentioned that. Some of these rights, they're obligatory, and some of them are highly recommended. And each one is going to be determined. Its rulings are determined by what? By supporting evidences. Because the word haqq could mean something which is wajib. It also could mean something which is highly recommended but not required. So the word haqq is kind of ambiguous. How do we know what's the rule for each one? We have to look at the supporting evidences, okay? So that's one thing. The second thing, those things which are obligatory from these, some of them are obligatory as what? On each individual person. Each individual person has to do that.
What about
you have that right.
We talked about.
Okay, and then some of them, it's what? A collective duty. So if someone amongst the people performs it, then the sin will be removed from the others. So in the case of as-salam, let's say I come to the mosque like this, there's this large gathering, and I say, Assalamu alaikum. If Fayruz responds, Wa alaikum as-salam, and everybody else remains quiet, that what? Everyone's good. Everybody's covered. Because somebody responded. Although I might feel a certain kind of way if nobody responded except Fayruz, right? But still, there's no sin on the others. But suppose we're in a crowded mosque like this, and I say, or I sneeze. I sneeze. And we're going to talk about this. You're jumping ahead of us, Habib. I just want to mention that. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it anyway. All right, so I sneeze, and I say, Alhamdulillah. And Fayruz says, Yarhamukallah. And everybody else remains quiet. Now that's wrong. If I sneeze and say, Alhamdulillah, everybody has to say what? Yarhamukallah. And it's not something that what? Is what they call fard kifaya. It's like if one person does it, everybody else not. No. This is fard ayn. Everybody has to do this. Everybody has to respond to Alhamdulillah, bi Yarhamukallah. You guys see that? So it depends. Each one has its own ruling. Yeah.
I think about the janazah. If few people go, you understand, to take care of the business,
yeah, the
rest of the whole community
will not be sinful.
Exactly.
But somebody has to do it. And on this point, I want to say this here, Juan. Is that I just want to stress what we said earlier, that these rights, you're entitled to them just by virtue of being Muslim. And it's not a condition that you're the Muslim I like, or the Muslim I had a friendship with, or the Muslim who shares my ethnicity or my language. And so when we hear about a Muslim that's sick, okay, it doesn't matter who it is. The fact that they're Muslim and they're ill means I should try to what? To visit them, if I can make a way. If I can make a way to visit them. The same thing with the funeral. You have, for example, Ikhwan, certain leaders, if you will. And those leaders who are Muslims, they'll die. But people don't like them because they did X, they did Y, or they did Z. Okay? From things that the people don't like. And then people will then do what? They'll refuse to attend that person's funeral. And they'll think they're justified because, oh, he did X, he did Y. It's not predicated on being a good Muslim, a perfect Muslim. It's just being what? A Muslim. Was he a Muslim? Then he has this right. He's entitled to this. And we can't, lose sight of that. Yeah, we can't lose sight of that. I remember there were some guys up in a particular city which will remain nameless, and they committed a crime, and they got killed doing that crime. Mm-hmm. And they were Muslims. And there was this huge debate on, social media and stuff about whether or not you should perform the janazah. Okay, it's easy. 1 + 1 = 2. Muslim equals what? They have this right. That's it. That's it. So, we have to, it's not predicated on being an angel, or not, we're not angels anyway, but it's not predicated on being a perfect Muslim, but just being one, a Muslim. If that title applies to the person, then they're entitled to what? These rights and other rights which we'll mention. Any other questions, comments, complaints, concerns, critiques? But, تفضلي.
I wanted to ask a question. I heard that if a Muslim sister passes a group of brothers, she has the right to either stay or she doesn't have to stay. Salam.
Well, remember, initiating the salam is not an obligation. It's just recommended. What Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullah alayhi, what he said about this issue about a woman agreeing to a man agreeing to a woman, he basically said it depends on the circumstances. Suppose a man comes into a house and the women in the house are from his maharim. They're from his relatives. Then of course he can give them what? As-salam. Suppose he comes into a house and it's a mixture of his maharim, his female relatives, and women to whom he's not related. Of course he can give what? As-salam to the group. Okay? طيب. Suppose there was a man and a group of women. He could give them what? As-salam. He could give salam to what? The group of women. Okay? He could give salam to the group of women. Conversely, if there's a sister and a group of men, or a group of sisters and a group of men, and a sister says salam, again, there's no harm in that. Okay? But suppose you have a man and a woman in a place where they're semi-secluded. Okay? So they're walking past each other in the parking lot. Okay? And they're semi-secluded. He said it's best that they don't what? That they don't greet each other. He said it's best that they don't greet each other. Why? Because in that circumstance, it could what? It could lead to something, or it could invoke suspicion. And he said there's a qaida, dar al-mafasid muqaddam ala jalb al-masalih. He said that whenever we're confronted with potential harm and potential benefit, we always give precedence to repelling the harm over bringing about the benefit. So there's a benefit in salam, right? But there's a potential harm in this woman who's alone greeting this man who's what? Alone or semi-seclusion. They shouldn't what? They shouldn't even greet each other, because why? Because avoiding the harm that may come from that is giving precedence over bringing about the benefit that may come from giving a salam. Got it? Does that make sense? Fine. Any other question? Fine. With that, we'll close then. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. What happened? Did it die? The other one died? The other one died?
How many cell phones you have?
What you got for the ghost?
iPhone 8?
Did they upload that one from